عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. My topic today is mindful parenting, nurturing children's spiritual and emotional being in the digital age. I begin with a verse from the Holy Qur'an, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Al-malu wal-banuna zinatul hayati dunya wal-baqiyatu salihatu khayrun inda rabbika thawaban wa jaza wa khayrun amala. Wealth and children, Allah says, are the adornment of the life of this world. And the everlasting, the good works are better with your Lord in reward and in expectation. Imam Zainul Abidin, in his Risalatul Huquq, talks about the rights of the child. And he says the right of the child is that you should know he's from you, and will be ascribed to you through both his good and his evil. In the immediate affairs of this world, you are responsible for what has been entrusted to you, such as educating him in developing good ethics, pointing him to the direction of his Lord, and helping him to obey him. So act towards him. This is the last line where Imam is now guiding the parents. So act towards him with the action of one who knows that he will be rewarded for good doing towards him and punished for his evil doing. So when you look at parenting, and I specifically chose mindful parenting, because engaging in parenting can be of different aspects, but being mindful of how you parent is crucial in Islam. The concept of mindfulness, which is muraqabah, has been given high preference in Islamic practices. So when we understand this message, it tells us that children are our trust that has been given to us, and we need to take responsibility for that. So looking at what we call the future of Islamic education, so whether we say is parenting with a manual or without a manual, is there a right way to parent? One of the primary concerns of Muslim parents in the West is the religious identity of their children. Many parents wonder, what is the secret in raising a child with iman, or faith, in a society in which being Muslim is challenging? In an article by Dr. Umaji on the development of religious identity of young Muslims, he states, although Muslim families transmit their religious affiliation to their children at higher rates than Christians in America, approximately 20% of those raised as Muslims do not identify as Muslim in adulthood. This is a huge number. This is 1/5 of the Muslim population who will be raised in the West, will grow up and not identify as Muslims. This is scary. So with tons of literature on parenting, where does one begin? In the last 3 decades, we've seen tons of the tone of parenting issues change. They've shifted. From the beginning, we'd seen from adult-centric to child-centric, and now we see some trends reverse. When Dr. Michaeline Doucleff became a mother, she examined the studies behind modern parenting, and she found evidence frustratingly limited, and the conclusions were often ineffective. So she was curious to learn about more effective parenting approaches. She visited several villages, several countries. She actually went to 4. When she went to a village in Maya, in the Yucatan Peninsula, she encountered moms and dads who parent in a totally different way than we do, and raise extraordinarily kind, generous, and helpful children, without yelling, nagging, or issuing timeouts. Doucleff wondered, are Western parents missing out on something? She has written a book, Hunt, Gather, Parent, What Ancient Cultures Can Teach Us About the Lost Art of Raising Happy, Helpful Little Humans. It's a very interesting book. It sort of takes us back to some of the values we had and we've actually discarded in adopting values that have not really, it has actually taken away some rights of parenthood from us. The title of her book is an indicative that modern parenting ways are missing certain aspects. Has modern parenting become more stressful? That we need to regain the art of happiness again? Is parenting a joyful experience? Or is it very stressful? In an article in CBC published in August 2024, it states, modern parenting is so stressful that the US issued a health advisory, something that parents said was long overdue. We are seeing the stress levels and anxiety facing parents in raising kids in modern times and ask, where are we going wrong? In today's fast-changing digital world, how do we raise children in a way that remains rooted and relevant? Let us now consider the guidance from Allah and how we perceive the role of parenting in Islam. Parenting is a trust, as we read from Imam Zainul Abidin. In Islam, children are not possessions. They're a trust, they're amanah from Allah. And as parents, we are the caretakers not only of their physical self, not only of their bodies, but of their minds and souls. Our role is to nurture their fitrah towards belief in Allah. It is not about teaching a religion, rather, it's living in ways that children can feel and follow. This places us in a role where parenting has to be present, intentional, and aware of how every word, action, and decision that influences this trust takes place. In Nahjul Balagha, Imam Ali alayhi salam in letter 31, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, when he's advising his son, he talks of the heart being an empty, uncultivated land, and whatever is planted will be accepted. And thus he takes the opportunity himself before any other outer forces can influence his child. This is a clear indication that we cannot outsource our parenting role to anyone, be it madrasa, be it nannies, or schools per se. These are agents that support our task, but this sacred responsibility is entrusted to us as parents. So what is our vision for the future? How do we envisage Islamic education in the future? As parents, everyone is concerned for their children's future. As Muslim parents, we must pause and ask ourselves, what kind of human beings do we want to raise? Is our vision only academic or material success? Or do we also prioritize faith, character, resilience, and service to others? These are self-reflection points where we need to ask ourselves. Are we raising children with a vision that withstands all times? The times are changing. What are we modeling in our own beliefs? Are our homes spiritually nourishing? And are we shaping our children's hearts or just their habits? If we want children who are conscious of Allah, confident in their identity and compassionate to others, we must first align ourselves with that vision. Change begins with us as parents, in our routines, in our language, in our digital habits, and in our intentionality. When we become focused in our intent, then the question of outsourcing parenting to madrasa or schools or daycares becomes contentious. It is like taking care of $1 million diamond ring. Can we entrust that to anyone? Our kids are worth more than $1 million. So here's a reflection. If our children imitated us exactly in prayer, patience, and purpose, where would they end up? This is something for us to take home. Let us now consider some of the challenges we encounter in parenting. If we reflect carefully, we observe that the digital world presents a new kind of challenge, one that disrupts the foundations of mindful parenting and child development. It exposes children to competing values and unfiltered content. It weakens family connection and the emotional presence, and often outsources moral guidance. If parents are not present in this position, then children's identities are risked, and we risk shaping their identities through social media, which children will constantly go back to. It offers a lot, but it is something we need to be very careful. In a poll conducted by the Institute of Social Policy and Understanding, American Muslims poll in 2021, 56% of Muslim parents say preserving Islamic identity is a top challenge. We know it. We're facing it. And this gives parents a huge role. We need to become more proactive. Preserving identity in a world of hyper-individualism means helping children stay rooted in faith and values, even in a society where everyone tells them, be whatever you want. It requires guidance. It requires support. It requires presence. Another area where parents are constantly struggling is with continuous engagement or entertainment of their children. Any spare time is being considered as boring time. We had the professor yesterday when he talked about his childhood and looking at the ceiling, and those were moments. It is said digital advices, they provide rapid. Neuroscience is telling us now that these devices provide rapid, high-intensity sensor input towards the children. And this trains the brain towards a reward system to crave for instant novelty and quick gratification. When that stimulation is removed, ordinary moments like stillness, reflection, unstructured play, it feels empty. It feels frustrating. So it looks like that the child's nervous system has become so wired to expect continuous entertainment. So this, when we look at this modern society who value productivity and business as value, children internalize that. And yet, from an Islamic perspective, quiet time is spiritually valuable. For reflection, for tafakkur, for creativity. Those of us who remember when we grew up without any modern toys, what were our toys? We played with in the kitchen with saucepans. We created images out of what was available. When everything is handed to a child, we are robbing them of that power of creating. We are robbing them of that time where being bored is fine. But it will eventually find a path where they can connect and create something. It allows room for development. So passing on faith in today's world is harder because children are growing up in an environment of constant distraction and increasing doubt. The digital world is not just outside our homes, it's inside our pockets, in front of our children's eyes and shaping their souls. What will happen if our children, if the digital world becomes their primary teacher? This is something we will come back maybe after a decade or even sooner to realize we wish we had done something differently. Adding to these complexities or competing influences that also shape character is this constant screen exposure. What does it do? It tends to dull emotional. Children, no longer are able to express emotions because they're losing that feeling. I don't know, as lecturers, when I already experienced that. When you lecture online and you only see screens. Before you would see faces, but now everybody's behind a screen. Nobody wants to show you their faces. It's like there is no human touch taking place. For children, this is very dangerous, right? And I can go on, but what I'm trying to say that these challenges call for parents to be present and aware. When adult guidance is lacking, children will turn to their peers on the internet, undermining the trust and grounding essential for strong character. And this erosion of character doesn't happen at once. It happens gradually, as daily habits and influences reshape the child's fitrah. And unless parents are present, intentional, and spiritually anchored, our children will be influenced by what we call the digital era. So what is the solution? How do we get out of this? How do we get out of this? Or are we comfortable with this? These are questions we need to ask ourselves. It is often said, raise your children for the times they live in. I've heard this many times. Don't raise them the way you were raised, right? This reflects the truth. The context change, digital life, mental health challenges, identity struggles. Our children face things which we didn't. But in adapting to modern times, we must not lose the timeless foundations of human development, such as truth, justice, self-discipline, God consciousness, and compassion. Shahid Mutahhari starts by framing education as a response to fitrah, the God-given nature of every human. He says education must preserve and elevate this innate spiritual and moral compass. Education divorced from spirituality produces knowledgeable beings without wisdom. Shahid Mutahhari draws a clear and profound distinction between Taleem, that is education, and Tarbiyah, emphasizing that while both are necessary, they serve fundamentally different purposes in the development of the human being. Mutahhari warned that Taleem alone cannot create individuals who are clever. No, he says it can create individuals who are clever but potentially harmful if not guided by proper values and spiritual training. As we see today, we have very educated people but lacking values and ethical principles. They can go on, destroy anything and anybody because they feel they know. Such kind of knowledge is dangerous. He advocated for education through practice. True learning comes from doing, not just hearing, especially in a moral and spiritual domain. It's just like a person who merely hears about trust cannot be trusted. A person who practices it becomes trustworthy. So Mutahhari maintained that training must be grounded in timeless principles. The method of nurturing can and should adapt to the era and the environment. When these approaches are informed by neuroscience on brain development, they yield the greatest benefit. The Prophet's emphasis on play in the early years reflects a profound understanding of child development as a joyful, loving interaction. During the first 5 years, when the brain is rapidly growing, a human being's brain develops in the first 5 years up to 70%. That's a crucial information. If that brain capacity is very vibrant in those early years, then laying the foundation for an emotional well-being and happy parenting will produce resilient child in later years. We must not allow that period to pass. It's a crucial time. From ages 7 to 14, the brain enters a stage of heightened neuroplasticity, particularly in the prefrontal cortex, where planning, self-control, and decision-making mature. These are also almost physically stable. The ages between 7 and 14, the child is very stable. All the teeth have come out, physically stable. There is no hormonal imbalance at that time. This is the time to instill structure, to train, to reinforce rules and boundaries. They're ready for that. But one period of development feeds into the other. If you are not careful in being happy, the child in that early stage will be resilient. And the second stage feeds most importantly to the teenage years. As a child enters teen years, the surge of hormonal changes and emotional intensity is best met with empathy, not resilience or resistance. This calls for a shift in parenting style, one that emphasizes friendship, open communication, and trust. Such an approach aligns with the child's evolving psyche and the need for autonomy. This methodology reflects the wisdom of responding to each developmental phase appropriately. Playing, nurturing in early childhood, structure and guidance in middle years, and connection in adolescence. When each stage is addressed with care, it strengthens the next, leading to an effective tarbiyah. While parenting must respond to the times we live in, it must also respect the developmental journey that unfolds across these formative years. So we've looked at all the challenges in the digital world, the challenges. It's not there's more to it. But I'd also like to look at the other side of the coin, the opportunities that the digital world presents. We cannot ignore that the opportunities of the digital world has presented. There is no doubt that the digital world opened a whole new horizon of connectivity. We went through a pandemic where we were all locked up in our homes, but yet we felt so connected. It made us a global village, where knowledge is now no more restrictive to a place or a school, but can be accessed wherever you are. With the pandemic, more so, it has allowed women flexibility in working from their own homes and kitchens. One is able to access Islamic education, like the tafasir, in other languages and get ChatGPT to translate it verbatim into English. The digital world has given entry to a whole literature that was otherwise not accessible. It has also exposed the mainstream, what the mainstream wants to hide. For decades, the mainstream media outlets around the world have heavily censored and distorted coverage of the Palestinian struggle, often portraying it through biased frames. But with the rise of social media, Palestinian youth and civilians have shared raw, unfiltered stories, videos, testimonies, and images that broke through the silence. The hashtags like Gaza under attack or All Eyes on Rafah trended globally, powered by ordinary people, not governments. These digital voices have mobilized protests and boycotts. They have shifted public opinion, especially among the youth, and they have put pressure on institutions and organizations in